Okay, so we are recording now, and Vasu.
Nice, sweet. Well, yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks, Matt. So sorry, I'm sitting in a car, obviously, just always moving around. So I'll make this quick. My name is Vasu Sojitra. Pronouns are he, him, his. I'm one of the co-founders for Inclusive Outdoors. So the ones probably pestering most of you through email or text. Sophia's doing the same. She is, I believe, just got off work and needed to go climbing. So she needed to go do that, but I'm kind of stepping in to promote Inclusive Outdoors. And yeah, both our organization and Montana Mountaineering are based out of Bozeman, which is the lands of the Shoshone-Bannock, the Salish Kootenai, Crow, Northern Cheyenne, Blackfeet, and many others that call this home. So if you guys have any questions about any of this, please feel free to type it in. I'll be kind of the Q&A person throughout this 30, 45-minute series webinar, and Matt will kind of take it from here. So I'll just hand it off to Matt.
Okay. Thanks for the intro, Vasu. I'm Matt Zia. I use he, him pronouns. And I'm the program director at the Montana Mountaineering Association. And we're the organization that is working with Vasu to put on the Affinity Ice Clinics. So we're super psyched for this weekend. And we're really excited that Gaia came on as one of the sponsors and is supporting the weekend. So we decided that it'd be a really great thing to do a little bit of a webinar with sort of using Gaia and the platform so that you all have the tools to use it this weekend and can sort of learn the functionality, use it in the field, do a little bit of troubleshooting, and then use it for your own adventures. So I'm gonna share my screen for a sec and share. Loading. Okay, great. So title of this webinar is using Gaia GPS for backcountry navigation. Gaia is a really neat platform. It runs on both the computer and on mobile devices. And what it allows you to do is carry maps from the sort of standard USGS topographic maps all the way through a bunch of really detailed layers on your phone into the backcountry with you. It's a really awesome tool for both planning backcountry adventures as well as navigating and recording once you're in the backcountry. There's a database of trails that you can look up on the Gaia platform. So whether you're at home or traveling, you can have a resource for finding new places to go. Like I said, there's a huge map catalog, including topographic, satellite maps, some National Geographic maps, as well as layers from avalanche centers and other agencies. You can download maps so you can use them offline, which is great because a lot of the places that we go don't have cell phone service. You can access your location in real time, even when your phone is in airplane mode, through the GPS capabilities of your mobile device. And then you can record a track once you're in the field, and those all go into your Gaia account. And so you'll have a library of all of the places that you've recorded tracks, taken photos, etc. If you do it through the Gaia app. So we've got sort of 4 primary goals of this webinar. The first is to be able to use the phone app to locate and download your area. The second is to know how to select and deselect map layers on the phone and computer. Building off of that, the third goal is to be able to adjust the opacity of those maps in order to show the most relevant information to you. And then the fourth major goal is to be able to use your phone in the field to find your location, record a track or a waypoint, or follow a route. So those are the four primary goals. And then secondary goals that we'll get into a little bit are learning how to use the computer interface in your pre-trip planning, and then also discussing a couple of winter-specific layers and their use. So we're in winter now. I guess technically we're still autumn, but come December 21st, we'll be in calendar winter. And Gaia has a whole host of layers that are really useful for winter navigation in particular. So we'll touch on those a little bit. Okay. So the way this is going to work is that it's a little challenging to actually show on the phone what I'm doing. So we're going to utilize a couple of videos that Gaia has put out to walk through a couple of the features on the phone. Then I'll pull up my phone screen and you can follow along with me as I download maps of the area that we're going to, pick the maps that I'm going to use, adjust the opacity, and then we'll talk about using the phone in the field to find your location. Okay, so that'll be the first start bit, and then we'll transition over and I'll share my computer screen. We'll discuss a little bit of the functionality of the computer interface and then talk about those winter layers. Okay, if you have any questions, pop those into the chat function, and Vasu will be monitoring that and sort of compiling questions to answer at the end. Okay. So at this point, if you have Gaia already loaded on your phone, I invite you to open it up. You can follow along a little bit as the videos walk you through some things, and then we'll walk through it together on my phone as we go.
You can download maps with Gaia GPS and take them wherever the trail may bring you. Find the area you would like to download. Tap the layers icon and choose a map source. Tap the create icon, then download maps. You can double tap and pinch to adjust the zoom. Tap and drag the blue dots to adjust the download box. Use the slide bar to adjust the max zoom at the top of the screen. The higher the max zoom, the more detail your map will have. The app defaults to the max zoom that works well for each map source. Tap save and add a name for your map, or use a name automatically generated by the app. The green spinning icon indicates you have a download in progress. Tap on it to view the download status screen. You'll need to be connected to Wi-Fi or be in service in order to complete the download. To view your saved maps, tap Saved and then the filter icon, and select Maps. Select the map download you would like to view. Tap the Edit icon, and here you'll have the option to Show on Main Map or Delete. Tap Show on Main Map to center your download on the main map screen. You can also download multiple maps to cover a large area. Tap the Create icon, then Download Maps, and the areas already downloaded will be shaded in red. You can move and adjust the download area, and then tap Save when you're ready. Hi, this is Robin from Gaia GPS Adventure Support. If you have any questions about this video, you can email us at support@GaiaGPS.com.
So that's an overview of how to download maps. It is for the iOS system. They do have a different video for the Android system because the interface is slightly different, but the sort of main usage is similar. So if you're running an Android phone, you can go look up that other video and we can put it into sort of the comments and the resources attached to here. So they did give you a little bit of a teaser, if you caught it, of the next video in the playlist, which is sort of selecting which map layers to use. Okay, so I'll play that again. Follow along if you can, and know that we're going to do this for Highlight Canyon, sort of once we've worked through all these videos. Oops.
You can view a variety of topo, satellite, and other maps on Gaia GPS to suit your adventure needs. To change the visible map source, tap the Layers icon to view the map sources you've added to the Layers menu. You can add and remove different map sources by tapping Edit. Then, choose from a variety of categories like topo maps. The green plus signs and red minus signs indicate whether you've added a map source to your layers list. Tap any source to learn more about it. You can add the source from the details screen as well. Return to the Layers menu and tap the map source you would like to view on the main map.
My name's Ashley from Gaia GPS Adventure Support. If you have any questions about this video, email support@GaiaGPS.com.
So something to note with this is that when you download a map, it will download the layers that you have turned on for that area that you've selected. So this sort of bring what the previous video talked about with downloading maps into this idea of utilizing different map layers. Okay, so you can actually download multiple map layers simultaneously. The two that I really like having are the US Geological Survey topo maps and the satellite imagery. Between the two of those, I can adjust the opacities and have a really good sense of of correlating the terrain features with the satellite imagery. And that's super useful for me because it helps me identify both terrain features like mountains, cliffs, rivers, lakes, etc., but also helps me navigate with things like meadows versus avalanche paths and densely forested areas. So those are the two layers that I find myself downloading most often. Okay. Oops.
You can view a variety of
The same one. Okay. And so once you've downloaded maps, when you're in the field, you can create routes, track routes, and create waypoints to both help you navigate as well as revisit things that you've done. Okay, so this next video is about creating a route, and then we'll talk through some of the waypoints and other navigation features.
Create a route to plan and measure your next trip. Tap the Layers icon and select an OpenStreetMap source map like Gaia Topo. Also, make sure you're connected to Wi-Fi or in service to have the route automatically snap to a trail. Tap the Create icon, then Create a Route. Tap Mode to select your mode of travel. Use Straight Line mode to create a route on unmarked trails or when offline. Bike and drive mode will snap the route to the nearest trail while connected to Wi-Fi or in service. Tap and drag the blue dot to the start of the trail. Long press a location along the trail to add a route point. The elevation profile, total distance, the cumulative ascent and descent will display at the bottom of the screen. Tap and slide your finger across the profile to see the corresponding location. To reposition a route point, tap and drag the blue dot to a new location. Tap a route point, then the pencil icon to delete it or create a waypoint. Add a route point between 2 points by tap and dragging the white triangle under the distance marker. When finished, tap Save and add a name for your route. To download a map along a route, select the resolution and toggle on the maps you'd like to download. Tap Save to save the route and initiate the map download.
So that's a brief overview of the functionality of the phone interface for Gaia. So I'm going to attempt to share my phone screen through the Zoom link, and we'll download a couple of map layers for Highlight Canyon, which is where we're going to be this coming weekend. Talk about recording a track and then recording waypoints, okay? Cool. So you should be able to see my phone screen. Feel free to give a little thumbs up if that's working for you. Thumbs up. Okay, great. So we're here. So you can't see where I'm clicking, but I'll just move my mouse so that you can see sort of what I'm pointing at. Okay. So on the interface, right? We've got a couple different things. We've got the main map display here. Okay. We've got these 3 toolbars up here that we can actually change what we're showing. So if I click on this middle one, it'll pop down, and I could select that I want this middle bar to show my elevation, my pace, my moving speed, current speed, etc. I find elevation most useful. Similarly, I can change my my left and my right. Okay, so we'll leave it at that for now. And then up here on the top, we've got a search function, a sort of full screen function. This, what looks like a bullseye, we've got the plus and we've got the layers, right? So the plus, if we click that, brings up the options to add things to our map. The layers, if we click that, brings up the option to select our map sources. And the bullseye, if we click that, zooms to your current location. And that'll happen even if you don't have cell phone service. So we'll click that. And there I am in sort of just south of downtown Bozeman, okay? So I'll zoom out a little bit. We'll see that here's Highlight Canyon down here, okay? For those of you who aren't in Bozeman, if you click on that search button and you type in Highlight, it'll come up with an automated list of suggestions. And we can select Highlight Reservoir, Highlight Lake, highlight peak. I'm gonna do highlight reservoir because that'll bring us pretty close. Close that. And now that's highlight reservoir. This lake right here is now centered on my screen. So I'll zoom in a little bit. And you can see that it's popping up with all of these waypoints, tracks, etc., that I've saved over the past years of using Gaia, okay? So I'll keep zooming in a little bit. And then I'm gonna pick my layers, right? Right now, I have the USGS topo as my base layer, right? And I could, if I wanted to, click on Add Map Layers. And that brings up the entire list of sources, right? So if we go to the United States, we can see these different topo maps, national map, the Gaia GPS topo, etc. I'm happy with the USGS topo. If you wanted to use a different one, feel free to click it. So I'll go back. Let's add some satellite imagery. I like the satellite with labels. Helps with finding things, okay? You can see it says remove. So this is already actually in my layers, okay? We'll go back. And if I scroll down into these inactive layers, you can see all of these that I have added in here, right? So we're going to add in satellite with labels. And now if I scroll up, back up to the top with my active layers, you can see that my USGS topo is labeled as my base map, and the satellite with labels is the overlay, okay? I'm gonna click done for now. And you can see that my map looks a little bit different now. I have some labels and I have what looks like sort of imagery, right? And if I zoom in, you can see that it's starting to show a little bit of detail, right? If I go back to my layers and I adjust my opacity up, that's what this bar does, right? And I click done and I go back to my main map, you'll see that all of a sudden that satellite imagery is much more visible and I can see where some roads are, some openings are, some cliff bands are, etc. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my map sources. I'll reduce my opacity a little bit because I want to still see my base layer, right? We'll zoom out and I'm going to download the map, right? So I clicked on that plus, now I'm clicking download maps and that red box shows up, right? You can see that I already have a lot of this downloaded actually because this is where I recreate a lot. So to capture all of highlight, I'm going to drag these blue squares out a little bit. I've got the reservoir kind of right in here. If I've used 2 fingers, I can move and pan the map. I'm gonna keep expanding it out, okay? And I'm actually going to go all the way down to highlight peak, which is right there, just to make sure that I have everything, okay? And then I'll hit save. Save, choose title, let's say, oops, highlight Canyon, done, save. Okay, show up, got the spinny wheel, and it's downloading. Cool. So now that I have my maps downloaded, I can get into some of those additional features like recording tracks and waypoints, okay? So if I go up to the plus button again, I can both record a track, which will start a GPS recording of the location of my phone until I hit stop, right? So if you're out on a trail run or on a hike or something like that, you can use that. to see where you went. I can add a waypoint. I can add a waypoint at my location, and that is what I find myself using the most. If I find something cool, if I want to remember something, I'll hit add a waypoint at my location, and it'll save that location data attached to that map. Okay, so I find that one super useful. Create a route, the video talked about. And then I can also take a picture of something that I see, and it'll save it attached to that location data. Okay. As always, if you have questions about any of that phone interface, pop them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. Okay. Okay, so brief overview of the functionality of the phone app. I want to touch briefly on the computer side of things. We'll talk a little bit about a couple of those layers that are winter specific, and then have time for Q&A, okay? So when you log into the Gaia interface on the computer, it will automatically sync whatever you do on your phone with whatever you do on your computer when the two of them have service, okay? So all of the things that I just added on the phone will eventually sync onto my computer once I turn those layers on, okay? So you can see here that my computer interface looks is centered on the same map area as my phone, okay? A lot of the functionality is the same. We've got sort of zoom in, zoom out buttons over here on the right. This button right here finds your location. Over on the left is where all of our route planning, map layers, and other buttons are, okay? So this top one brings up all my map layers, right? The interface is almost identical actually to the phone, right? I can add map layers. Shows up US, Canada, Europe. I've got my satellite imagery. I've got features and weather overlays, right? And then I can adjust the opacity of my maps in here, right? Oops. Send that all the way back up. Give it a chance to catch up, okay? I can close this. The little folder here is saved items. So that's all the things that I have recorded in Gaia. Some of them are on this map because they are in this area. Some of them are across the US. I can turn those on and off as well. So if I want to see a particular thing, I can focus in on that. I've got settings. I can print maps. So if I want to have a paper copy of this, I'll hit print, brings it up, and I can print my own paper copy of the map, which is kind of neat, because phones do run out of batteries sometimes. The other buttons on here, well, we can start to load. Create waypoints, create routes, create areas, and import data are all similar to those functionalities on the phone, right? So I can create a waypoint, and then I can click and drag this to wherever I want. And save it as test waypoint, right? I'll save, and then that shows up on the map. And now that will sync with my phone when I have my phone connected to Wi-Fi as well. Okay, so pretty neat functionality. You can create routes on either the phone or the computer. Sometimes the computer is nice because you have a big screen, and then can sync it to your phone to use for that trip. So I want to touch on briefly on a couple of winter-specific layers, given that we are coming into the winter season. Discuss their use, their functionality, some pros and cons of using them, and then we'll roll into Q&A. Okay. So if we go into maps and layers, or maps and overlays, apologies, I'm going to go to add a map layer, and I'm going to go down to feature and weather overlays. Okay, this is kind of the a bunch of these sort of like specialty layers. Oops, there we go, there we go. And a couple that are really useful in the winter are avalanche forecast. So I'm going to add that. Precipitation forecast. And then slope angle. Okay. I can also add snow depth and snow forecast. Whoa, there we go. So now you can see that the slope angle has shown up on my map. I just want to touch on a couple of other ones. You can put up wildfires. That's kind of nice, especially in the summer. But shaded relief, public land and private land, those are all really useful ones as well. Okay. I'm gonna go back. And you can see that the slope angle and the avalanche forecast have showed up as full opacity, okay? And basically what this is doing is saying like, how steep is this terrain, right? The closer to like the dark brown and black shading on this means it's a steeper slope. The red means it's a less steep slope, right? So if you're ice climbing or backcountry skiing, this can be a really good tool to see where you might be concerned about avalanche terrain, right? Avalanches happen when the terrain is past a certain steepness. So if you don't want to be exposed to avalanche terrain, you can use this tool to help plan your route and see which areas are or aren't exposed. There's a really big caveat there, which is that this only shows like large scale slope angle. It doesn't necessarily show that small terrain feature, which can be a little problematic because a small avalanche in consequential terrain can still be just as dangerous as a larger avalanche, okay? So I use the the slope angle tool very much with a grain of salt for like large scale route planning, but it's not a substitute for like in the moment observation and awareness of your surroundings. So just want to put that out there with that caveat, right? That these tools are really good for planning and navigation, and they're not a full substitute for that observational awareness and environmental awareness. Okay, so this weekend, while you're out in the field, I sort of encourage you to bring Gaia with you, right? See if you can make a trek from maybe town all the way up to Highlight, right? Maybe it's from the parking lot to the crag, so you know how to get back the next time you're there. If you take a photo, it'll sync with the location, right? So you can find waypoints and things like that. Most of your instructors are pretty familiar with Gaia and can certainly help you out with some of those things as well. Okay. So to close, I think it's an awesome tool. I use it all the time when I'm guiding. For route planning, for navigation, for tracking my pace. I think, as much as I like putting technology away when I go out into the mountains. I think that there is a time and place for appropriate use of technology. Stop sharing my screen. And I think that using Gaia to help with navigation is one of the best uses of technology, in the mountains, right? It's such an awesome tool, and I find myself using it all the time. So I strongly encourage you to play around with it, learn its functionality. It's a super awesome tool.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
For sure.
And those that are taking part in this weekend's clinic, everyone should have gotten a free 1-year subscription. So if you did not, just let me know and I can try to figure out if there are technical difficulties or anything like that. I think, Matt, you said you're open to questions. I did get one question at the beginning.
Totally.
The question was, I'm trying to remember because my chat kind of disappeared. But, if whoever asked it, if you would like to type it in, if I'm saying it completely wrong, please let me know. But do you have to download layers when you're downloading maps?
Yeah, let me see if I can understand the question right. So feel free to correct me if I'm misinterpreting this. If you're trying to download a map and have multiple layers download at the same time, do you need to download each layer individually? I think that's my understanding of the question. So if you have those map layers turned on and active on your phone, they should download automatically, right? So when I turn on the USGS topo, the satellite, and the slope angle, and then hit download, all of those will download simultaneously, but only for that area, right? They won't download for everywhere else, but just for that area. If I have them in the active maps layer, they'll download.
And then I believe you have to have at least one layer to download a map, right?
Yeah.
So,
it won't just download like blank
area,
right? You need to select at least one base layer.
Cool. So next question, let's see. Aside from creating your own routes, what websites do you recommend for downloading GPS tracks for popular routes?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because there's certain files out there you can download for Gaia.
Yeah. So there's I'll sort of answer this in two parts. One is that you can actually export your routes as GPS files. So if you want to share a route with a friend, I do this fairly often in the guiding world, but also just with my friends, where I'll go somewhere and I want my friend or my coworker to be able to follow that track. I can export my file and share it with them so they have access to it. Okay, so that's a really great way to, sort of have a little bit of collaboration between your friends. In terms of publicly available files, summitpost.com is a pretty good source for some of those tracks. Trying to think of what are the other ones that I've used.
Does AllTrails connect?
AllTrails will let you download tracks, and Trail Forks will let you download tracks as well. Yeah. Vasu, are you able to type those into the chat, and I'll sort of get to this next question about the downloading maps?
Let's see.
Okay.
So, and I believe if you have a GPS watch, you can download the route off of your watch as well, or upload it into Gaia.
Yes. Yep. There's a little bit of cross-platform compatibility as well. Yep. The next question was, when you download maps, this is a good one. Yeah. I've noticed if you draw too big of an area, it lacks detail when you try to retrieve it. What's the sweet spot of having too many lines show up but downloading a big enough area to be useful? Yeah. I'll go back to the phone actually for a second, because this is a good one. So okay, so we're back on the phone. If I go to the download maps again, right? Oh wow, it's getting rather cluttered as I'm just downloading different things. We'll zoom out. Right, like let's say I want to download this enormous area, right? All the way up into Bozeman, right? There's a couple things to notice. So this slider bar at the top, right? I can reduce the maximum zoom. Like let's say I just want a general area. I can reduce my maximum zoom all the way to the left, right? You can see the scale has changed, and you can see that the size of my file is now 1 megabyte. If I increase that zoom all the way in, my file is actually bigger than I have space for on my phone. So by doing that, by adjusting this maximum zoom, I can adjust the resolution of my file, right? My go-to is about the 1 to 24,000 zoom here. That's the same scale as what's on USGS topo maps. So it's familiar to me, right? That's, I think, just that over all the years of using these tools, I've sort of settled on that as like the scale that works in my brain for translating terrain into features, into, you know, my observations around my landscape. Yeah. Does that answer the question? Okay, great.
And feel free to unmute yourself. This is not a very strict or by the book webinar. So if you want to ask, feel free. Just unmute. I know let's see, what did I run into? I think it was like downloading the map and trying to like overlay 2 different maps together. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, so when you download maps, it'll sort of automatically download them at the overlay level that you've already selected.
Yeah, like more so if, let's say I like record on my phone and then my phone dies and then I start recording on my watch and then I get the rest of my route on my watch. Is there a way to like mix the two?
That's a good question. I have never tried to do that. So my go-to answer there would be to look into the Gaia help section, right? They've got a pretty extensive library of like frequently asked questions. What I will say is that many GPS programs allow you to link to tracks. So that's something that you'd probably
I feel like
do on the computer afterwards. Just in my experience from working with sort of other programs.
Yeah. Is it another one for me? Please feel free. Anyone else who has questions, these are just kind of blowing out my brain. Is Strava connected to Gaia as well? Sorry, there's a dog barking.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I have never used Strava, so I don't know what that interface is like. I do know that the .gpx file is compatible with a lot of different platforms. So you can import and export the file between platforms pretty easily. Yeah. Question about the difference between premium and a regular membership and which one we've been gifted. Yeah, so Vasu, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's the premium membership.
Yes,
Right?
let me just check. I believe it is.
Okay.
We'll get back to you on that real quick.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, the difference between the premium and a regular membership is in those additional map layers. That's the difference that I sort of utilize most often. The premium membership gives you access to a lot of these additional map layers, like the satellite imagery, the feature and weather overlays, some different topo maps, stuff like that.
And there is and for folks, there is an overlay for native lands too, which Gaia just came out with recently. So if you are ever wondering traditional lands or ancestral lands of the native people in your area or the areas you're traveling to, you can look to Gaia for that as well, which is super cool.
Yeah, thanks, Vasu. That's, yeah. I think that one came out only a couple months ago is when it was sort of integrated into the Gaia platform. So yeah, they're continually adding new layers, and it's yeah, it's neat to see Gaia including layers like native land into the platform. Question about oh yeah, question about Bureau of Land Management layer. Yes, there is. It's under public lands. So I'll go back to my screen for a second, and we can pull that one up. So if we go back, we're going to deselect the avalanche layers, deselect that. If I go into add map layer, I go into the US layer. So here's the native lands layer that Vasu was just talking about. And, oh, sorry, it's not in that. It's in feature and weather overlays. I can come down and go onto public lands. So I'm gonna turn that layer on. Go back. And if I zoom out now, I have an overlay that has, give this a second to catch up, public lands. So they're colored by the land management agency. So Forest Service is green. And then if we scroll over here, this light yellow is BLM land, and the light blue is state land. So a lot of parts of the West, so sort of this hodgepodge of Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, state land. This is a really great layer for figuring out where those public land access points and areas are. Cool. Ooh, yeah, good question about differences between Gaia and all trails. Why would you choose one over the other? As an aside, recorded a track using both and they were off by about 5 miles. Yeah, so a lot of these just different platforms have, you know, that recording capability. I like Gaia because the app running on the phone is not that energy intensive. I have a really old smartphone, and the battery dies really quickly. And I find that the recording on Gaia and the sort of interface on Gaia uses less battery life than all the other apps that I've tried. If you have a newer phone, that might not be a deal breaker. For me, that's sort of the biggest reason why I like to use Gaia over other sources. And that's a really funny story about being off by 5 miles. I've definitely been there before. I think that sometimes the tracking takes a little while to catch up to you, particularly if you've had your phone off and then turn it back on. Sometimes there's a pretty big lag time in the program sort of catching up to where you are. It does require pretty good view of the sky in order to have an accurate location, even when you're in airplane mode. So like if you're in a canyon or something like that, sometimes it takes longer, and the location data isn't quite as accurate as Michelle has sort of has shared with us. So.
And I don't think All Trails has like the layering system that Gaia does.
Okay.
So I mean, I know it has a lot of amazing recreation trails, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't get like weather and all that kind of stuff involved into it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Any other questions about Gaia? Okay. Well, sounds good. Hope everyone is looking forward to the weekend. I'm super excited to see everyone on Friday. And yeah, as the weekend goes on, feel free to pop us any questions about Gaia. We can play around with the functionality of it, and then even past the weekend. We're here as a resource. I'm sure Vasu has Gaia tracks all over the mountains of Montana.
I actually don't use my cell phone that often. Other than taking photos. So
yeah, totally right.
Don't. But
so
I should. I feel like whoops.
yeah. So it goes. So feel free to shoot us any more questions that you have. Either before the weekend, during the weekend, or afterwards. Here's resources.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Sure.
What do you use to navigate? Nothing. I mean, I use Gaia to find the tracks, and then I just like go. I don't know how safe that is, but I've realized I have a fairly photographic memory when it comes to some of this stuff, so that's helped me a lot in a lot of the stuff. Mostly, I actually use mostly paper maps, which I really like because you can like see everything. And there's some really good paper maps that one of the publishing companies in Montana have created, and I really like using those to kind of map out my runs and skis and stuff like that. So that's been super helpful. Cool. Well, yeah, thanks again, Matt. Tomorrow night, I'll be talking with Alan Lim, who is the founder of Scratch Labs. Hilarious human, and I hope you all can join. He's really great. I've hung out with him, such an amazing chef as well. We're going to focus on nutrition. I know when I first started doing some mountain activities, I had no idea what to eat. I was eating some of the same stuff as I would eat at home, and it would just give me the worst stomach aches, and it wasn't enough food, or like it just wasn't right. So just focusing on some of that stuff when we're moving through the mountains, either climbing or hiking or whatever it may be. So yeah, hope everyone can tune in for that. Other than that, I got nothing else. Matt, do you have anything?
Nope, that's it.
Cool.
Looking forward to the weekend, and yeah.
Awesome. Sweet. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Cool. Good night.